The autumn morning in Astoria, Oregon, was gentle, with a soft mist curling off the ocean. I stood in my kitchen, the scent of fresh coffee filling the air as I watched waves lap against the shore through my window. The sea was always a comfort, its rhythm steady, predictable, unlike so much else in my life. My name is Vivian Larson, Viv to those who know me well. I'm 65, a retired nurse, and in 3 days, I'll turn another year older. For 30 years, I worked at Astoria General, tending to patients, holding hands through pain, and learning the quiet strength it takes to care for others. Now, my days are quieter, filled with small rituals, coffee in the morning, a walk along the beach, a book by the fire. But quiet can feel heavy sometimes. Too heavy. This house, with its creaky floors and faded wallpaper, holds memories of Henry, my husband, gone 8 years now. He was a freelance journalist, always chasing stories, his typewriter clacking late into the night. We'd sit together, in this very kitchen, him editing his articles, me sharing tales from the hospital. He'd laugh, saying my stories were better than his. You see the heart of people, Viv, he'd say, his hazel eyes twinkling. That's your gift. When he died cancer, too fast, too cruel, I thought the worst pain was losing him. But there's another kind of loss, slower, more insidious. My son, Nathan, 38, a software engineer with a sharp mind and a life that seems to have no room for me. He's married to Laura, a marketing manager, all polished smiles and ambition. They have 2 kids, my grandchildren, Sophie, 15, and Ethan, 11. I used to think we'd be close forever, the way Nathan and I were when he was little, when we'd fish off the pier or read adventure books under a blanket fort. But somewhere along the way, that thread snapped. I sipped my coffee, now lukewarm, staring at the ocean. My birthday was coming, and the thought gnawed at me. Would I spend it alone again? Last year, Nathan didn't call. Laura sent a text, curt and late. Happy birthday, Viv. Nate's swamped. Kids have practice. Talk soon. They didn't. I tried not to let it hurt, but it did. Like a bruise you don't notice until you press it. The phone rang, startling me, an unknown number. At my age, you answer every call. It could be important. Hello, Mrs. Larson, a bright voice chirped. This is Emily from Coastal Blooms. I'm confirming your flower delivery for tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. I frowned. I didn't order any flowers. Oh, she paused, confused. It's under your name, a bouquet of lilies. Should I cancel? Something stirred in me, a flicker of curiosity. Why not? Maybe a splash of color was what I needed before my birthday. No, don't cancel, I said. I'll take them. 10 o'clock is fine. After hanging up, I wandered to my bedroom, my steps slow on the stairs Henry and I had refinished together. I opened my closet, filled with practical clothes, a nurse's wardrobe, built for comfort, not flair. In the back hung a dress Henry gave me for our last anniversary, deep sapphire, to match your eyes, he'd said. I held it up to the mirror. My hair was silver now, my face lined with years, but my eyes, they were still that same blue. Henry's absence was everywhere in this house. The bookshelves he built, the garden he tended, the driftwood he carved into a lamp. Sometimes, I talked to him, my voice echoing in the quiet. What do you think, Henry? I whispered, folding the dress away. Will they come for my birthday? I thought of Nathan, Laura, Sophie, and Ethan. We hadn't seen each other since Christmas. A stiff evening of forced smiles and silences. Laura barely hid her impatience. Nathan was distant, the kids glued to their phones. When Nathan was young, we were inseparable. I'd bandage his scraped knees, cheer at his soccer games, read him Treasure Island before bed. Henry used to tease, "You love that boy more than me, Viv." But things changed. Nathan grew up, went to college, met Laura. She was beautiful, driven, and made it clear her family was her priority now, not us. After Henry's death, Nathan helped with the funeral, stayed for a few weeks, then drifted back to his life. I didn't blame him. He had a family, a career, but the distance grew, our calls rare, visits rarer. I sat by the window, watching the waves, the question lingering, would they come, or would I be alone again, with only the C4 company? The coffee in my mug had gone cold, but I held it anyway, staring out at the gray waves of Astoria's coastline. The ocean always had a way of pulling memories to the surface, like driftwood after a storm. I thought about Nathan, my son, and how things used to be. When he was a boy, we were thick as thieves. We'd spend hours on the pier, fishing poles in hand, laughing when the fish outsmarted us. I'd read him adventure stories, Treasure Island, The Hobbit, his eyes wide with wonder. "One day, Mom," he'd say, "I'm gonna sail the world and find my own treasure." I'd ruffle his hair and tell him he was already mine. Henry, my husband, would watch us with that lopsided grin of his. "You too," he'd tease, "you're gonna make me jealous." But he wasn't, not really. He loved how close Nathan and I were. As a freelance journalist, Henry was often out chasing stories, but when he was home, he'd teach Nathan how to kick a soccer ball or fix a bike chain. Those were good years, full of warmth, the kind you think will last forever, but they didn't. When Nathan hit high school, things started to shift. He fell in with a crowd that worried me, kids who skipped class, smoked behind the bleachers. His grades slipped, and that spark in his eyes dimmed. Henry and I tried to steer him right. I'd sit with him at the kitchen table, helping with algebra, while Henry talked about responsibility, about making something of himself. "You're better than this, Nate," he'd say. It wasn't easy, but we got through it. Nathan pulled himself together, graduated, and went off to college to study computer science. Henry and I were so proud when he landed a job as a software engineer. We thought we'd raised the good man. Then came Laura. She was striking, confident, a marketing manager with big plans. They met at a tech conference, and Nathan was smitten. Their wedding was a grand affair, all glitz and champagne, with guests I barely knew. Even then, Laura made it clear that Nathan's family was hers now, not ours. She'd smile, but her eyes were cold, like she was marking her territory. I told myself it was natural, new couples need their space, but deep down, it stung. When Henry got sick, everything unraveled. Cancer took him so fast, I could barely catch my breath. Nathan was there for the funeral, handling details with a quiet efficiency that reminded me of his father. He stayed for a few weeks, checking on me, making sure I was okay. But then he went back to his life, his job, Laura, their kids, Sophie and Ethan. I didn't blame him. He had a family to care for, a demanding career. But the calls grew shorter, the visits fewer. Last Christmas was the breaking point. I'd invited them for dinner, hoping to recapture a little of what we'd lost. I spent days cooking roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Henry's favorite pecan pie. But when they arrived, late and distracted, it felt like they were doing me a favor. Laura barely spoke, her lips tight with impatience. Nathan was polite but distant, checking his phone between bites. Sophie, my 15-year-old granddaughter, scrolled through her social media, barely looking up. Ethan, 11, answered my questions with grunts, his eyes on his game. "How's school, Sophie?" I'd asked, desperate to connect. "Fine," she muttered, not even glancing my way. I tried again with Ethan. "Still playing soccer, buddy?" "Nah," he shrugged. "I do basketball now." The evening dragged on, all forced smiles and awkward silences. When they left, Laura gave me a quick nod, saying, "Thanks, Viv. Busy week ahead." Nathan hugged me, but it was brief, like he was already halfway out the door. Last year, on my birthday, they didn't even call. Laura sent a text, hours late. "Happy birthday, Viv. Nate's in meetings. Kids are at practice. Catch up soon." They didn't. I sat in this same kitchen, staring at that message, feeling like a ghost in their lives now. With my 65th birthday looming, the ache was back. Would they remember this time? Would they care? The waves outside rolled on, indifferent to my questions. I set my mug down, the coffee untouched, and felt the weight of all those years, loving Nathan, raising him, hoping he'd stay close. Somewhere along the way, I'd become invisible to him, to Laura, to my own grandchildren, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could bear it. The morning after that mysterious call from the flower shop, I woke up with a spark I hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was the thought of those lilies arriving, or maybe it was the idea of my 65th birthday being different this time. I stood in my kitchen, the ocean whispering outside, and decided I wasn't going to spend another birthday alone. I wanted my family, Ethan, Laura, Sophie, and Ethan around my table, laughing, talking, like it used to be. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I poured a fresh cup of coffee and started planning. I'd make Nathan's favorite strawberry cake, the kind he begged for as a kid, with whipped cream frosting he'd swipe with his finger. For dinner, I'd roast a chicken with herbs, the way Henry taught me, and whip up a vegetable salad for Sophie, who I remembered might still be vegetarian. Ethan loved my garlic bread maybe, That'd get a smile out of him. I jotted down a grocery list, my pen moving faster than it had in months. By noon, I was at the salon down the street, Coastal Cuts, where I'd been going for years. Something fresh, Viv, my stylist, Jenny asked, eyeing my silver hair. Something to make me feel alive, I said, surprising myself. She suggested a soft, ash blonde tint to brighten my natural gray, and I agreed. As she worked, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My face carried lines from years of night shifts at the hospital, but my eyes, Henry always said they were, like the Astoria sea, still held their spark. After the salon, I stopped by a boutique and found a dress, a deep teal that reminded me of the ocean at dusk. It matches your eyes, the saleswoman said, echoing Henry's words from years ago when he gave me that sapphire dress. I bought it, feeling a little reckless, a little hopeful. Back home, I started cleaning, though the house was already tidy. I polished the dining table Henry had built, dusted the bookshelves lined with his old journalism books, and swept the porch where we used to sit and watch the waves. Every corner of this house held him, his laugh, his quiet strength. What do you think, Henry? I whispered, arranging a vase for those lilies that were coming tomorrow. Can we fix this? My friend Ruth stopped by that afternoon, her arms full of homemade blueberry muffins. Ruth, 70 and widowed like me, was a force of nature always, in bright sweaters, always ready with a sharp opinion. She'd been a school counselor before retiring, and she had a way of seeing right through people. You're glowing, Viv, she said, setting the muffins on the counter. What's got you so busy? My birthday, I said, pouring us tea. I'm inviting Nathan and his family. I want to try, to bring us back together. Ruth raised an eyebrow. Her mug paused midair. Nathan, the son who can't be bothered to call, and Laura, who acts like you're an inconvenience. I winced. Ruth never minced words. They're busy, Ruth. They've got their own lives. But maybe this time, Vivian Larson, she interrupted, her voice firm but kind. You've let them walk all over you for too long. You're their mother, their grandmother. You deserve better than their scraps. Her words hit hard, like a wave crashing over me. She was right. I'd been waiting, hoping, excusing their distance for years, but I couldn't give up. They're all I have, Ruth, I said softly. I have to try. She sighed, squeezing my hand. You've got a big heart, Viv, but don't let them break it again. And you've got me, too. Don't forget that. After Ruth left, I stood by the window, watching the sea churn under a cloudy sky. She was right. I'd been too patient, too forgiving, but I wasn't ready to let go of hope. Not yet. I picked up the phone and dialed Nathan's number, my heart pounding. He didn't answer at first, and I nearly hung up, but then his voice came through, clipped, distracted. Mom, everything okay? Everything's fine, I said, keeping my voice steady. Nathan, my birthday's this Friday. I'd love it if you, Laura, and the kids could come by, just for a little while. I'm making your favorite cake. There was a pause, long enough that I could hear muffled voices in the background. Laura, probably, weighing in. Friday's tight, Mom, he said finally. Laura's got a big campaign launch. Sophie's got debate practice. And Ethan, well, you know how it is. My heart sank, but I pressed on. I understand. Maybe just an hour. It'd mean so much. Another pause. More muffled voices. All right, he said, his tone reluctant. We'll swing by around 3, but we can't stay long. 3 is perfect, I said, my voice brighter than I felt. I'll have dinner ready. Does Sophie still eat vegetarian? What about Ethan? Mom, don't go overboard, he cut in, a hint of irritation in his voice. We'll just stop by to say happy birthday. No need for anything fancy. Of course, I said quickly, not wanting to push him away. I'm just happy you're coming. When I hung up, I couldn't sit still. For the first time in years, my family was coming, not for a holiday, not out of obligation, but for me. I ignored Nathan's warning and started planning anyway. Strawberry cake, herb-roasted chicken, a fresh salad, garlic bread for Ethan. Nothing too much, but enough to show them I cared. The next day, the lilies arrived, a burst of white and gold that lit up my kitchen. I set them on the table, a small promise to myself that this birthday would be different. I spent the day cooking, cleaning, and humming old songs Henry loved. Ruth came by to help, waving off my protests. Let me do something, she said, scrubbing a pot with gusto. Besides, I want to see this family of yours in action. They're not that bad, Ruth, I said, though I wasn't sure who I was convincing. She snorted, her eyes twinkling. Sure, Viv, and I'm not a nosy old lady. I laughed, the first real laugh in days. By Friday morning, the house smelled like fresh bread and hope. I slipped into my new teal dress, touched up my makeup, and looked in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I felt like more than a shadow. I felt seen. That the morning of my 65th birthday dawned clear. The ocean outside my Astoria home, sparkling under a rare autumn sun. I woke early, my heart fluttering with a mix of nerves and excitement. Today, my family was coming: Nathan, Laura, Sophie, and Ethan. For the first time in years, I wouldn't be alone on my birthday. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing my teal dress, the one that made me feel like the woman Henry used to call his sea-eyed girl. A touch of mascara, a swipe of lipstick, just enough to highlight my eyes. I looked alive. Not just a retired nurse, not just a widow, but Vivian Larson, ready to welcome her family home. The house was ready. The dining table gleamed, set with my best china, a wedding gift from Henry's parents. In the center sat the lilies from that mysterious delivery, their golden hearts glowing. The kitchen smelled of herb-roasted chicken, fresh garlic bread, and the strawberry cake I'd baked for Nathan. A crisp vegetable salad waited for Sophie, and I'd even made extra garlic bread for Ethan, remembering how he'd loved it as a toddler. Everything was perfect, or as close to it as I could manage. By 2 o'clock, I was pacing, glancing out the window every few minutes. What if they didn't show? What if Nathan called with an excuse: work, practice, some last emergency? I pushed the thought away. They'd promised. At exactly 3, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel drive. My heart leaped. They were here. I opened the door, smiling so wide it hurt. "Happy birthday, Mom," Nathan said, giving me a quick, awkward hug, his cologne sharp and expensive, like he'd just come from a boardroom. He wore a crisp button-down, his dark hair neatly combed. "Viv, you look nice," Laura said, her smile tight, not reaching her eyes. She was impeccable in a tailored blazer and pearl earrings, every inch the polished marketing manager. Behind them stood Sophie, 15, her face half hidden by her dark bangs, eyes glued to her phone. Ethan, 11, shuffled in, his hoodie too big, his expression sulky. Come in, I said, stepping aside. "I'm so glad you're here, Sophie." "Ethan, you've grown so much." Sophie mumbled something, barely looking up. Ethan shrugged, his sneakers scuffing the floor as he passed. The air felt heavy as we moved to the living room. I tried to lighten it, pointing out the lilies. "Someone sent these, can you believe it? They brightened the whole place." Laura glanced at them, her lips pursing. "They're quaint. You should really update this room, Viv. It's so dated." Her eyes swept over the bookshelves Henry built, the cozy armchairs we'd picked together. "Nathan and I know a great interior designer. We could help." "I like it the way it is," I said, keeping my voice light. "It's home, full of memories." She murmured something under her breath, but I let it go. We sat in a thon, Laura on the couch, the kids in armchairs, me in a chair I'd pulled from the kitchen. I tried to start a conversation. "How's work, Nathan? Still coding those big projects?" "It's fine," he said, checking his watch. "Busy." "And Sophie, how's school?" "Nathan mentioned you're in debate club." "Yeah," she said, eyes on her phone. "It's okay." I turned to Ethan. "What about you, buddy? Still playing basketball?" "Nope," he said, picking at his sleeve. "Swimming now." "Oh, that's wonderful," I said, grasping at any thread. "Henry was a great swimmer." "Did I ever tell you about the time he Mom?" Nathan cut in. "We're kind of on a schedule." The conversation sputtered, each question met with one-word answers or shrugs. I felt like I was pulling teeth, but I kept smiling. "Let's eat," I said finally. "Dinner's ready." At the table, things felt a little warmer. Nathan took a bite of the chicken and nodded. "This is good, Mom. Like when I was a kid." Sophie picked at the salad, muttering, "It's not bad." Ethan, to my surprise, grabbed the second piece of garlic bread, eating with focus. Laura barely touched her plate, saying she was watching her carbs. I tried again. "Sophie, Nathan said you're in a debate competition soon. That sounds exciting." She glanced up, annoyed. "It's just a school thing. No big deal." Laura jumped in. "She's got a scholarship chance, Viv. Very competitive. My parents are coming to watch." She emphasized my parents, and I felt a pang. Of course, her parents were the important grandparents. "And Ethan," I said, turning to him, "how's swimming going?" "It's fine," he said, eyes on his plate. Gotta meet next month. I'd love to come watch, I said, my voice bright with hope. Maybe I could. No room, Laura said quickly. The meets are packed. Family only. I nodded, my face burning. Family only. As if I wasn't family. Let's do cake, I said, standing to hide my hurt. Strawberry, Nathan's favorite. I brought out the cake. Its pink frosting, gleaming. Laura waved it off, citing her diet. Ethan took a small slice after a sharp look from his mother. Then Nathan stood, pulling a small, wrapped box from his jacket. Before we go, Mom, your gift. Laura smiled. That same cold smile. Sophie put her phone down, watching Ethan fidgeted. My heart lifted. A gift meant they'd thought of me, cared enough to choose something. I took the box, my fingers trembling as I untied the ribbon. Inside was a single card. I opened it, expecting a heartfelt note. Instead, in bold letters, it read, "Happy birthday, Mom. We've sold your car and house to invest in our future. We're getting married again tomorrow. Thanks for everything." They burst out laughing, Ethan, Laura, even Sophie, her phone now recording me. Ethan giggled, chanting, got you, got you." I stared at the card, my hands frozen. The words blurred. Sold, my car, my house, a second wedding. It was a joke, they said, but their laughter was sharp, cruel, like knives slicing through me. "Nathan," I said, my voice strange, distant. "What is this?" "Oh, come on, Mom," he said, still chuckling. "It's just a joke." "Lighten up, a joke," I repeated, my grip tightening on the card. "You came here, to my home, on my birthday, to mock me." "Don't be so dramatic, Viv," Laura said, rolling her eyes. "It's family humor. You're too sensitive." "Family humor," I echoed, my voice steady now, cold. "We have very different ideas of family." Nathan stopped laughing, his brow furrowing. "Mom, don't take it personally. It's just, I think you should go," I said, standing, my voice quiet but firm. "Laura, you've got that campaign launch. I wouldn't want to keep you." They exchanged glances, clearly thrown. They'd expected tears, maybe begging. "Not this, Mom. Come on," Nathan tried, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "Thank you for coming," I said, walking to the door. "Safe drive." They left, their laughter gone, their faces uneasy. I closed the door and sank to the floor. The card crumpled in my hand. Alone, in my quiet house, I felt something break and something else rise, hard and unyielding. I wasn't their joke anymore. I was done. The silence after they left was deafening. I sat on the floor, the crumpled card still in my hand, its words burning in my mind. "We've sold your car and house. We're getting married again tomorrow." A joke, they called it. But it wasn't funny. It was cruel, a deliberate jab at my place in their lives, or lack of it. My 65th birthday, the day I'd hoped would bring us closer, had shown me the truth. To Nathan, Laura, and even my grandchildren, I was nothing more than a punchline. I don't know how long I sat there, the ocean's steady rhythm outside, my Astoria home, the only sound. The lilies on the table mocked me with their brightness. But as the tears dried on my cheeks, something shifted inside me. Not just pain, not just anger, but a quiet, cold resolve. I was done waiting for their love, done being invisible. I was Vivian Larson, a woman who'd spent 30 years saving lives, who'd raised a son, who'd loved a man through sickness and loss. I deserved better. I stood, my knees aching from the hard floor. Old age doesn't let you forget itself. In my bedroom, I opened the desk drawer where I kept important papers. Tucked among bills and old letters was a business card. Carol Bennett, attorney at law. Carol had handled Henry's affairs after he died, a steady hand when I was drowning in grief. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but I needed her now. It was late, nearly 7, but I dialed anyway. After 3 rings, her voice came through, calm and professional. "Carol Bennett, speaking." "Carol, it's Vivian Larson," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Henry's widow. I know it's been a while, but I need your help. It's urgent, Vivian." I could hear the surprise in her tone. "Of course, I remember. You, what's going on?" "I need to see you tomorrow," I said, glancing at the crumpled card on the bed. "It's about my will, and some other things." "Tomorrow works," she said, her voice warm but curious. 10 o'clock. "Perfect," I said. "Thank you, Carol." When I hung up, I felt a weight lift, like I'd taken the first step out of a cage. I walked to the kitchen, tossed the card into the trash, and started clearing the table. uneaten, chicken, barely touched salad, the strawberry cake Nathan hadn't even tasted. I scraped it all into the bin, each motion deliberate, washing away the wreckage of my birthday. The next morning, I drove to Carol's office in downtown Astoria, a small brick building with a view of the harbor. As I climbed the steps, leaning on my cane, my knees were worse after last night's floor sitting. I felt a strange clarity. Carol greeted me warmly, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun, her glasses modern but understated. "Vivian, it's good to see you," she said, shaking my hand, "though I'm guessing this isn't a social call." "No," I said, settling into the leather chair across from her desk. "It's about Henry's estate and my son." I told her everything, the card, the laughter, the years of growing distance. Her face darkened with each word. "That's appalling," she said when I finished. "Your son and his family. That's unacceptable." "It's not the first time," I admitted, my voice low. "Just the last straw." I pulled a folder from my bag, the one I'd been digging through last night. "When Henry died, he left me everything: our house, his savings, stocks, and that rental condo in Seattle. We never told Nathan the full extent. I wanted him to build his own life, not rely on his father's money." Carol nodded. "I remember, you were adamant about that. But last night," I continued, "I found something." I slid a document across her desk, an old bank statement with a post-it note in Nathan's handwriting, dated a year ago. It listed my account number and a scribbled question: how to access. "I think their joke wasn't entirely a joke," I said. "I think they've been looking into my finances." Carol's eyes narrowed as she studied the note. "This is serious, Vivian. We'll need to investigate. But first, what do you want to do?" "I want to change my will," I said, my voice firm. "Nathan, Laura, they get nothing. Not a cent. I want the money to go to charity, the Astoria Hospital Fund, the local animal shelter, maybe a scholarship in Henry's name for aspiring journalists." "That's a big step," Carol said, her tone careful. "Are you sure?" "I've never been surer," I said. "And there's more. I want to sell the Seattle condo. Henry bought it for our retirement, for the grandkids to visit. But they don't care about that. I'm done holding on to dreams that aren't mine anymore." Carol leaned back, studying me. "What do you plan to do with the money?" "I'm moving," I said, surprising myself with how certain I sounded. "To Savannah, Georgia. A fresh start, somewhere warm, somewhere new. My friend Ruth is coming with me." "Savannah," she repeated, a small smile forming. "You've thought this through?" "I stayed up all night thinking," I said. "I'm tired of being a doormat, Carol. It's time I lived for me." She nodded, scribbling notes. "Selling the condo will take a few weeks, but its prime real estate should fetch a good price. The will, we can draft right away. I'll include a clause to deter challenges. Anyone who contests it gets nothing, and I'd recommend a medical evaluation to confirm your mental capacity, just to be safe." "Do it," I said. "All of it." As I left her office, the harbor air cool against my face, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy coat. But there was one more thing I needed to do. I stopped by Ruth's house, a cozy bungalow just down the street. She answered the door in a bright yellow sweater, her eyes sharp. "Viv, you look like a woman on a mission." "I am," I said, stepping inside. I told her about the card, the note I'd found, my meeting with Carol. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. "I'm selling the condo, changing the will, and moving to Savannah," I finished. "Will you come with me?" Ruth grinned, her eyes sparkling. "Try stopping me. I've been dreaming of warmer winters. And I want a front row seat when you stick it to that ungrateful son of yours." I laughed, the sound foreign but welcome. For the first time in years, I felt in control. Nathan and Laura thought they could laugh at me, maybe even scheme behind my back. But I wasn't their pawn anymore. I was ready to rewrite my story starting now. 3 weeks after my birthday, my life was a whirlwind of change. The Seattle condo sold faster than I'd expected. A developer snapped it up for a luxury project, wiring $1.3 million to my account. Carol Bennett, my lawyer, finalized the new will, directing every penny of my estate house, savings, stocks to charities, the Astoria Hospital Fund, the animal shelter where I'd fostered cats, and a journalism scholarship in Henry's name. Nathan and his family would get nothing. I'd also undergone a medical evaluation, confirming I was sharp as ever, a safeguard against any legal challenges. I was packing for Savannah, my new home, a cozy cottage with a garden just blocks from Ruth's. The papers were signed, the move set for next month. But before I left Astoria, I had one last thing to do. I wanted Nathan, Laura, Sophie, and Ethan to know exactly what they'd lost, not just money, but me. I wasn't their joke anymore. I called Nathan on a Friday evening, my hands steadied despite the knot in my stomach. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice wary. "Mom, is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," I said, keeping my tone light, almost soft. I'd like you all to come for dinner Sunday. I owe you an apology for how I acted on my birthday. I overreacted, and I have some news to share." A pause. I could picture him glancing at Laura, weighing whether I was worth their time. "Sunday's busy," he said. "The kids have activities, and Laura's, it's important." "Nathan," I cut in, letting a hint of vulnerability creep into my voice. "Please, just an hour or two." Another pause, longer this time. "Fine," he said finally. 6 o'clock, but we can't stay long." 6 is perfect," I said. "I'll have dinner ready." "Don't go all out, Mom," he said, irritation creeping in. "It's just dinner." "Oh, I won't," I lied, smiling to myself, daughter hanging up. I called Ruth. She was at my house in minutes, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "You're really doing this, aren't you?" she said, plopping onto my couch, giving them a taste of their own medicine. "It's not revenge," I said, though part of me wasn't sure. "It's closure for me." "Well, I'm bringing popcorn," Ruth said, grinning. "This is going to be a show." Saturday was a blur of preparation. I wanted this dinner to be perfect, not for them, but for me. The last meal I'd cook in this house, the last time I'd open my door to their indifference. I set the table with Henry's favorite linen tablecloth, polished the silverware, and placed fresh roses from my garden in the center. I cooked Nathan's childhood favorites, pot roast with carrots, creamy mashed potatoes, homemade rolls, and an apple pie for dessert. Sophie's salad was bright with greens, and I made extra rolls for Ethan. Ruth arrived early Sunday, dressed in a simple cream sweater, her makeup bold. "You look like a queen, Viv," she said, hugging me, "ready to slay some dragons." I laughed, adjusting my teal dress, the same one from my birthday. Not slaying, just setting things right. At 6 sharp, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and opened the door. Nathan stood there, his tie loosened, looking tired. Laura was pristine in a navy dress, her smile as cold as ever. Sophie clutched her phone, barely glancing up. Ethan shuffled behind, his hoodie zipped to his chin. "Come in," I said, my voice warm. "I'm so glad you made it." Nathan gave me a stiff hug. "Happy to be here, Mom." Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the house. "Still the same old place," she said, her tone clipped. "Dorothy's here?" Nathan asked, spotting Ruth in the living room. "She's family," I said simply. "Please, sit. Dinner's ready." The meal started awkwardly. I asked about Nathan's work, Sophie's debate team, Ethan's swimming, but their answers were short, distracted. Laura picked at her food, murmuring about calories. Ethan grabbed the second roll, which gave me a flicker of hope. Sophie even said the salad was pretty good, a rare compliment. After the main course, before pie, I knew it was time. I dabbed my lips with a napkin and looked at them. "Nathan, Laura, I invited you here to apologize," I began, my voice steady. "I reacted poorly on my birthday. I didn't mean to make a scene." Laura's shoulders relaxed, a smug smile forming. Nathan nodded, as if to say, "About time." "But," I continued, my eyes locking on theirs, "I also need to apologize for letting you treat me like I don't matter. For years, I've excused your distance, your dismissals, your disrespect. That was my mistake." Laura's smile froze. Nathan frowned. "Mom, what are you talking about? The card was just a joke." "A joke," I said, nodding slowly. "I understood more than you think. I understood that I'm nothing to you. And I've made peace with that." I stood, walking to the desk where I'd placed a folder. "But there's something you should know." I pulled out the documents. "Nathan, when your father died, he left me everything. Not just this house, but stocks worth over $1 million, a savings account, and a condo in Seattle. I never told you because I wanted you to succeed on your own." Nathan's eyes widened. Laura leaned forward, her face hungry. "I planned to pass it all to you and the kids," I said. "But after your joke, I made a decision. I sold the Seattle condo for $1.3 million. You what? Nathan shot up, his voice sharp. That was Dad's. For us, it was mine, I said calmly. And I got a good price. Half went to the Astoria Hospital Fund and a journalism scholarship for Henry. The rest. I bought a cottage in Savannah, Georgia. I'm moving next month with Ruth. The room went silent. Laura's mouth opened, then closed. Sophie looked up from her phone, stunned. Ethan stared at his plate. And my will? I continued, holding up the folder. It's changed. Everything goes to charity. You get nothing. You can't do this. Laura snapped, standing. That's unfair. Unfair. I raised an eyebrow. Was it fair to ignore me for years? To mock me on my birthday? To raise your kids to see me as a joke? Mom, we didn't, Nathan started, but I cut him off. There's more, I said, my voice like steel. That joke about selling my house and car. I found your note, Nathan, in my files. Asking how to access my accounts. I had Carol investigate. You and Laura tried to forge my signature to transfer the Seattle condo last year. I left a fake document as a trap, and you fell for it. It's all on record. Nathan's face went pale. Laura sputtered. That's your lying. Try me, I said. Contest the will, and you'll expose yourselves. My lawyers. Ready? Sophie spoke, her voice small. Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't know it had hurt you. I looked at her, my heart softening, but only for a moment. Thank you, Sophie. But I think it's time you all leave. They filed out, Nathan and Laura arguing under their breath, Sophie teary, Ethan silent. As their car pulled away, Ruth poured us wine. Well, Viv, she said, raising her glass, you showed them. I nodded, but inside I felt hollow. Not triumph, but a strange, quiet freedom. I'd stood up for myself, and I wasn't done yet. The morning I left Astoria, the ocean was calm, a soft gray under the autumn sky. I walked through my house one last time, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors Henry and I had sanded together. Each room held a memory, his laughter in the kitchen, Nathan's childhood drawings on the fridge, the quiet nights we'd spent dreaming of a future that never came. I stood in our bedroom, touching the quilt we'd bought on our honeymoon. Goodbye, Henry, I whispered. I'll carry you with me, always. Ruth was waiting in the car, her bright sweater a beacon in the morning mist. The moving truck had left yesterday with the essentials, my books, Henry's old typewriter, a few photos. The rest I'd sold or given away. As we drove out of Astoria, I looked back at the house one last time. A chapter closing. Savannah, Georgia, was waiting a new page, a new life. The cottage in Savannah was more beautiful than I'd imagined. A single-story home with a wraparound porch, surrounded by a garden of azaleas and magnolias. It was 2 blocks from Ruth's new place and a short walk from a park where live oaks dripped with Spanish moss. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of flowers and possibility. Ruth's sister, Clara, a lively 75-year-old, welcomed us with open arms and a bottle of sweet tea. Welcome to paradise, ladies, she said, her eyes twinkling. This place'll make you feel 20 years younger. Those first weeks in Savannah were a blur of discovery. Ruth and I explored our neighborhood, found a cozy cafe with the best pecan pie, and joined a local yoga class for active seniors. I laughed more than I had in years, my body loosening with each stretch, my heart lighter with each day. Clara introduced us to her friends, a warm group of retirees who welcomed us like family. Among them was Leonard, a 70-year-old retired doctor, with a kind smile and a quick wit. He reminded me of Henry not in looks, but in his quiet intelligence, the way he listened, like every word mattered. You were a nurse? Leonard asked at Clara's backyard barbecue, his gray eyes curious. That's a calling, not just a job. Bet you've got stories that'd put my ER days to shame. We got to talking, swapping tales of hospital nights and patients who changed us. He loved jazz, just like Henry, and we'd sit on my porch some evenings, listening to Miles Davis, sharing stories of our lives. I wasn't looking for romance. Henry was still too much a part of me, but Leonard's friendship was a gift. A reminder that connection was still possible. Nathan and Laura stopped calling after that dinner, though I got a curt email from Carol, my lawyer, confirming they'd backed off any legal challenge once they realized their forgery attempt was documented. I didn't feel triumph, just relief. Their silence was a weight lifted, a chance to focus on me. In Savannah, I found a new rhythm. I volunteered at the local library, reading to kids and helping with book drives. It felt like coming full circle, using my nurse's heart to nurture in a new way. I joined a gardening club, my hands in the soil, coaxing roses to bloom, and I started writing a journal at first, then little stories about my years as a nurse. I'd always wanted to write, but life, and then loss, had gotten in the way. Now, with the warm Savannah sun on my shoulders, I felt free to try. Ruth thrived, too. She signed up for cooking classes, whipping up dishes she'd never dared try. In Astoria. "Look at us, Viv," she said one evening, her face glowing as we sipped wine on my porch. "Two old broads, living the dream." I laughed, clinking my glass against hers. Not old, just seasoned. The truth was, I was happy. Not the fleeting kind, but a deep, steady joy I hadn't felt in years. I'd spent so long waiting for Nathan's approval, Laura's kindness, my grandkids' attention. In Savannah, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living for me. One afternoon, as I tended my roses, Leonard stopped by with a book he'd promised to lend me, a collection of essays on healing. We sat in the garden, talking about life, loss, and starting. Over. "You've got a spark, Viv," he said, his voice gentle. "Not everyone finds that, after what you've been through." I smiled, brushing dirt from my hands. It wasn't easy, but I had to choose myself. For once, he nodded, his eyes warm. "And you're doing a damn fine job of it." That night, I sat at my desk, writing in my journal. The words flowed, stories of patients I'd cared for, moments of courage, moments of heartbreak. I wrote about Henry, about Nathan, about the card that broke something in me but also set me free. I wrote about Savannah, about the garden, about Ruth and Leonard and Clara. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I thought about Nathan and his family, about the silence between us. Part of me still ached for what we'd lost, for the boy who used to run to me with scraped knees, for the grandkids who might never know me. But that ache was softer now, less sharp. I'd built something new here, something real, and I wasn't going back. As I closed my journal, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I stepped onto the porch, breathing in the warm air, listening to the distant hum of Savannah's streets. For the first time in years, I felt whole. Not a shadow, not a joke, but Vivian Larsenal, live free and enough. A year had passed since I left Astoria, and Savannah had become my home in ways I never expected. My cottage was alive with roses I'd planted with Leonard, their petals bright against the warm Georgia sun. I'd found my place here, volunteering at the library, tending my garden, writing stories about my years as a nurse. Ruth was thriving, too, her laughter filling our weekly dinners with Clara and her friends. Life wasn't just good. It was full, rich with meaning I'd carved out for myself. Nathan and Laura had faded into silence. Their calls stopped after that final dinner, their threats of lawsuits abandoned when they realized Carol had them cornered with evidence of their forgery attempt. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I was free. One morning, as I sipped coffee on my porch, a letter arrived, not an email, but a real, handwritten envelope, postmarked from us. The return address read Sophie Larson. My heart skipped. I hadn't heard from my granddaughter since that night, when her quiet apology had been drowned out by her parents' anger. I sat in the garden, the envelope trembling in my hands, unsure if I was ready to open it. Ruth, who'd stopped by for coffee, nudged me. "Come on, Viv, what's the worst it could say? Open it." I took a deep breath and tore it open. Sophie's handwriting was neat, careful, like she'd chosen each word with care. Asterisk, "Dear Grandma, I don't know if you'll read this, or toss it when you see my name. I wouldn't blame you. After everything we did, me, Mom, Dad, Ethan, I know we don't deserve your time, but I have to try. I need to tell you, I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. That birthday, that awful card." I laughed along, recorded it, didn't think about how it hurt you. I was selfish, following Mom and Dad's lead, not questioning them. I see now how wrong we were. Things have changed since you left. Mom and Dad fight all the time about money, about you, about everything. I found some old photos in the garage, ones you left behind. You and Grandpa, smiling on the beach. Dad as a kid, running to you with a fish he caught. You looked so happy. I don't know how we lost that. I don't know how I let myself become someone who'd hurt you. I'm graduating high school soon, heading to college to study design. I want to create things, clothes, spaces that make people feel something. Maybe it's because of you, the way you made that house feel like home. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I see what we did. I'm sorry, Grandma. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Sophie asterisk. I read it again, tears pricking my eyes not from pain, but from something softer, like relief. Sophie's words were raw, honest, a crack of light in the darkness of that year. Ruth, reading, over my shoulder, squeezed my arm. She's got a heart, that one. Will you write back? I think so, I said, my voice quiet, but I need time to think. That evening, I walked with Leonard along Savannah's riverfront, the water glinting under the setting sun. I told him about the letter, about the ache it stirred. She's young, he said, his voice gentle, like the breeze. Kids make mistakes, especially when they're following bad examples, but forgiveness, it's not just for her. It's for you, Viv. It lets you let go. He was right. I'd already let go of Nathan and Laura, their greed and cruelty no longer my burden. But Sophie, maybe there was something worth salvaging. A week later, I sat at my desk, pen in hand, and wrote back, asterisk, Dear Sophie, your letter touched me deeply. Thank you for writing, for being brave enough to own your mistakes. I don't hold a grudge, not against you, not ever. You were a child, caught in your parents' world. What happened hurt, but I know you didn't mean it. I'm proud of you, heading to college, chasing your dreams. Design is a beautiful path, creating things that matter, that bring joy. Maybe you got a little of that from me, from your grandpa. Savannah is my home now. I've got friends, a garden, stories I'm writing. I'm happy, truly. I'm not coming back to Astoria, and my choice is about my estate stand. But that doesn't mean we can't start fresh. If you want, come visit. I'd love to show you this city, introduce you to my friends, hear about your designs. My door's open, always. Love, Grandma Viv, asterisk. I mailed the letter, not knowing if Sophie would reply, if she'd visit. It didn't matter. What mattered was the peace I felt, the quiet strength in choosing myself. Life, I've learned, isn't about holding on to what's gone, whether it's a husband, a son, or a dream of family that never was. It's about building something new, even when your hands tremble, even when you're 65 and starting over. It's about saying no to those who diminish you and yes to those who see you. It's about forgiving, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. As I sat in my garden, Sophie's letter beside my coffee, I looked at the roses Leonard and I had planted. They were blooming, bright and bold, just like this new life I'd made. I was Vivian Larson, and for the first time in years, I was enough.